Okay. Yeah, sweet. Let's make sure everyone's here. Excellent. Let's see. Anyone in the chat? Let's go ahead and get a little audio check. Make sure audio and video is good. Bill Bloom, how's it going, bud? Thank you for coming on. Mr. Powers. Mr. Powers, if you all missed it, had a great talk this weekend at the Weaver Space Conference. It was the bomb. Sweet. Okay, I promise I'll never say that again. The bomb. Okay. Scott. We got Ryan here. Rian. Dr. Bob is in the house. Sweet. Excellent. Okay. So today was kind of inspired by the hangout I did. Well, we didn't have a hangout last week, so the prior week, the week before. LJ Mr. P. Is that like Mr. T? You got like big gold chains? From Canterbury. I had a great weekend in Canterbury back in 2006 when I lived in London. That is a great little town. Awesome town. Hope you enjoy that. That's you should feel blessed to live there. It's a really, really great town. Okay. Of course, Mr. Schultz from Germany. Hello. I love hello is the same in Germany in English. Man, that's great. I love when words are the same. Okay, well, getting back to it. So, what kind of spurred my idea for this was a hangout that I had, again, not last week, but the week before. Hey, Gunter. And I kind of explained, we were going through Foundation 6 and how to create some things. And I actually think it was Ryan. I think this is you, I assume oil field oil and gas gifts. That is you, Ryan. I'm pretty sure that's you. I visually saw, like, when I explained some things, like just the light bulb just go ding, right? And I was like, and that felt great, right? I mean, it felt awesome, kind of, showing something off. And obviously Hangouts are great because you can kind of see each other. It's not like this live stream, right? And I saw the light bulb go off in his head, and it was really cool. And I want to try to make that light bulb go off in a lot more of your heads, right? So I'm gonna focus on one little thing today. I don't know. We might go short. We might go not short. I don't know. I tend to blab and blab. I can talk about web design and RapidWeaver and stacks all day long. So, but yeah, today we're gonna look at the idea of a class, and in Swatches, and I'm gonna demystify it for you guys. Like, it's, I know for a quote unquote non-developer, right? Some of this stuff could seem scary, but I am just going to pick it apart. I'm going to show you guys how it works and how simple it is. Okay. And actually, we're going to start off not even in RapidWeaver. I'm going to show you like how it works from the code perspective and show you how simple it is. Okay. Or we're going to start with simple examples, right? But and then we're going to go off into RapidWeaver and stacks and swatches and show you how we can take the same concepts and apply it there. So, okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's do this. Okay, there we go. Hopefully we got my screen here. And, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up, an app called, it's my kind of my code editor of choice lately. It's been an app called Nova. It's where it's nice. It's good. It used to be called Coda. It's by Panic, the same people that make Transmit. And yeah, it's just nice. So we're gonna start off here. Just make sure that we can see everything. Sometimes my screen is we look good, right? All right, sweet. Looking good. All right. So let's get a little preview window here. Oh shit! Actually, hold on. Let's do like a preview like that. There we go. Now we get a little side-by-side preview. Okay. So first off, we're going to I'm going to type in some HTML in here, and we're going to see it. Well, we should see it live right over here. Okay. And so first off, if you've ever looked at the dev inspector, you've probably seen something called a div, right? Oops. So that is a div. And if you'll notice, think of a div, okay? Obviously, this is HTML, okay? And this HTML always consists of an opening tag and a closing tag. There are some exceptions to that rule for example, like an image, okay, that doesn't have a closing tag. It's just a single tag. But for the most part, all HTML elements are going to have an opening tag and a closing tag, okay? And think of a div. Div is kind of like the de facto default HTML element, okay? It is just a generic, think of it as just a box. Why is it called a div? I do not know. Actually, you know what? Just for fun, really quick, I'm going to do, let's bring up, I've actually always wondered this, and I've never looked. So let's just figure it out right now. Why is a div called a div? Div is a block element that creates a line break. Okay, I thought it meant division, because it's dividing areas of the web page. Content division element. Man, that is just horrible. Whoever came up with that was just stupid. Like, I don't know. Division. Yes, you are dividing up your content into different elements, but I don't know. Kind of stupid if you ask me, but whatever. Okay, div. It is what it is. Div is a block. Now, by default, it's just going to be empty. We see nothing over here. Okay. But here, just for fun, I'm going to put in, this is my, content. Okay. Oh, I might need to save this file. Here, let's just save this file really quick. Let's save it to my desktop. And let's just call it, stream. Okay, there we go. And, hey, where is my, hold on, let's do that again. Preview. There we go. Okay. So now this just looks like a paragraph of text because my div really doesn't have anything else but that, right? But we're going to play around with this div, okay? And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a class. Actually, before that, let's add some styles to this. And to do that, I'm going to put in. Now, normally we could have like a separate CSS file, but just so I can have everything living in this same document, we're just going to put in style tags, which allows me to put in type CSS directly into the HTML file. So this makes it really cool and easy to just kind of muck around with stuff and see it live, which is kind of a cool thing with Coda. Okay. Actually, what we're gonna do? Let's go ahead and make this little. Hey, you know what? It doesn't need to be whiter. We're not gonna do tons of stuff here. Okay, so let's say I wanted to style this div. Okay, I could do div. Okay, now you might notice that this what this does is I'm typing in CSS here. Okay, and basically my rule says. This is called a CSS selector, the things before the curly braces, okay? And this selector says, find all divs on the page and style them a certain way, okay? So if we do like, let's do something simple. We'll do a background color and we'll do it like light blue, okay? So I save my file. And there we go. We see the change over here. The content, we now see this div, right? Because we added a background color. Okay. Okay. But what's kind of cool is actually let's do this. I'm going to put in 3 divs here. Okay. And there we go. all of a sudden I have 3 divs. Each one, as you see, is a new line. Okay, here let's do like div 1, div 2, div 3, just so that the content is a little bit different. Okay, so we have number 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you notice, all of them have a background of light blue. Okay, and essentially the reason that is because our style definition, we told it to, hey, CSS, whenever you find a div, any div, okay, let's give it a background of light blue. Okay, now, while this can be useful, in this particular case, I mean, since div is kind of like a generic element, this isn't necessarily a rule you'd want to do. I just wanted to show you that in HTML, we can style things. If we want to style all of a particular thing, let's say you wanted to style all headers or all sections or all H1s on the page, right? So like if these were all H3 elements, okay, and I wanted to style all of them at the same time, I could style all of them with an H3 tag. And there we go. Now you might notice, hey, Joe, it went like, now we have like this space in between them. Well, that's because in an H3, H3s have other default things such as bottom margins assigned to them, right? Where divs don't, okay? But I'm going to go back to divs just because they're the simplest of all elements, okay? But I just wanted to show you that you could style all of a particular element really easily with CSS. Now we can apply multiple rules, okay? Let's say like that H3 had some margins around each thing, right? If I just put in a new line here and I do margin, I don't know, do like 10 pixels, okay? There we go. I now have a 10 pixel margin around every single div. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to style just one of the divs or 2 of the divs? Okay. This gets into something different. Okay. Just for fun, I'm going to delete that background. Let's keep the default margin of 10 pixels on all of my divs. Okay. We'll remove the background color. Now, let's introduce a concept of something called a class. Okay. I'm going to add on this very last one, I'm going to put class equals, in quotes, I'm going to put in blue. Okay. So you might guess what I'm about to do here, right? So I want to style this particular content area blue. I want to give it a background color of blue. How might I do that? Well, I know many of you are already familiar with what a class is. So I'm going to go ahead and do dot blue. And then I'm going to do my curly braces. Remember, inside the curly braces is where we put in our CSS rules. Now, you might also note that one thing I did was I added, wow, that is a thick line. But I added a dot there, right? Okay, so right there, I added a dot. So it's dot blue. And when you use a dot in CSS, it thinks that you're looking at a class. So you do dot and then your class name. Okay. So if I wanted to, anything that has the blue class, if I want to give it a background, I could just start typing in my CSS rules. So we'll do background and let's do light blue. Okay. And one thing you'll notice, I don't want to teach every little thing here, but it's always the key, the thing we want to style, you put a colon, okay, then we have our colon, and then we have the value. So here, margin, colon, 10 pixels, background, colon, light blue, right? So it's like a key value pair system, CSS. So let's save this. And now that I save this file, we see that, voila, the class, the last one, since I added class of blue, we made the background blue. Okay. And again, we can add multiple rules here. So let's say on this one, I want to add padding. So I'm going to add padding and we'll do 10 pixels. Okay. Save that. And voila. Right. So now not only do I have a background color, but I have padding. And then here's my text. Let's say I want to adjust the font color here. Let's do like color : and do I don't know, white. White is probably not going to look nice. Now let's change that to dark blue. Wow, that's dark blue. That sure looks purple to me. But wow. Okay. Crazy. That looks like classic purple to me. That's interesting. So now we have a dark blue background, a padding of 10 pixels, and a color of white. And what's awesome is I can put this blue class on whatever I want, right? So I'm gonna put that here. And there we go. Now I have two of them. Now what's also interesting is we can override things. So by default, we said all margins have a 10 pixel margin. All divs have a 10 pixel margin. But what if we said, like, when we add the blue class, we actually want it to have a, let's do something different. How about 0? We want a 0 margin. And there we go. Okay. So here we'll see that when we apply a 10 pixel margin by default, but when something has a blue class, we're going to override that and have a 0 pixel margin. Okay. I haven't been looking at the chat room. So if you guys have any questions, please go ahead or if you need to slow down or go over anything, please go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay. Okay. So there we go. As you see, I've gone over a lot of things here, but it's not difficult. Okay. So here we have a little bit of basic HTML. And we can apply classes. Now, also, what we'll notice is we can apply as many classes as we want to something, right? So let's create a class called, big text. Okay, and this is going to be font size. Let's do 18 pixels. Okay, now, so I created this class. And it's called big text. And whatever I add it to, it will get that style. Well, here, let's make it a little bit bigger so it's very apparent. We'll do 32 pixels. There we go. So as you see right here, this third div, okay, let's make that window a little smaller. Okay, it has two classes. We have blue and we have big text. Okay, and this is why, if you notice, you just separate them with a space. And this is also why we cannot use spaces in our class names. Because if I were to do big space text like this, right, it would think that I have three classes: blue, big, and text. Okay, this is why our classes, I recommend either doing no delimiters, but if you want to have a delimiter, I recommend using a dash, just because it's very easy to see, it's legible, and yeah, so I think dashes are a great way if you want to delimitate the text. Or delimitate, is that a word? Delimit the text. Okay, whatever. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. Here we have a normal div. Here we've added the blue class, which gives it a dark blue background, a padding of 10 pixels. It makes the color white, and then it adds a margin of 0. And then we have a big text class that makes this font size 32. Now, let's say for here, this first one, if I do class equals big dash text, there we go. Save that. Now, the first div, it only has big text. Okay. It doesn't have the blue background because we didn't give it the blue class. The second one only has the blue class. And this third one has both. So it has the blue background and the big text. Okay. So as you see, I know, hopefully I didn't go too fast. I tried to keep things very simple here. Okay. But what I just showed you here is exactly what a swatch is. Okay. So, obviously there's more to CSS than this, right? There's different types of selectors and all kinds of, I mean, things can get a little crazy, right? Definitely. But this is the raw basics, and this is where everybody should start, right? Think of this content up here as different stacks that we have on the page. Okay? These class names that we define, okay? These are the same exact thing as a class in a swatch. When you type in a class in your swatch, guess what my stacks do? All they do is you take your class name and they put it exactly like this on the page. That's it. Actually, you know, it could be fun. I'm going to replicate this same exact HTML inside stacks in a little bit. We're going to jump over to RapidWeaver, and I will replicate this same exact thing using stacks and swatches. Okay? Delineate. Thank you, Crystal. Man, delineate. It's not deliminate. Delineate. Thank you very much. I am not a great orator, but hopefully I'm an okay teacher. Where was I going with this? Okay, so each div, think of it as a stack. And, you know, the class setting inside that stack, you can type in a class. Okay? And then if we look at this style, this is exactly what swatches do. We can create now, here I create like single rules. In here, we'd probably have multiple swatches to accomplish this. But you would assign you'd create a swatch that targets a blue class, and you would set the background to be a particular color. Then you could have a padding swatch that, again, targets the blue class, and you're giving it a padding of 10 pixels. Same thing for font color, same thing for margins. And then down here, we could create another swatch that does a font size of 32 pixels, and then we assign that a class. Okay. Hopefully, I see it. Willie, it looked like I resolved some huge things for you with CSS learning. Thank you. Hopefully, some light bulbs are starting to come on. Okay. How do these exceptions get prioritized? So Willie's asking, like, how do these get prioritized? Okay, because here I had a default margin of 10 pixels, but then I had a margin of 0 pixels. So this is a complex topic. Okay. There are two ways that, well, let's look at what does CSS mean? It means cascading style sheet. Okay. So a style sheet, that's easy, right? This is a style. Okay. And this is our style sheet. Okay. But what does the term cascading mean? Okay. So there are several different rules. I'll teach you a couple of them right now. Okay. In terms of a cascade. What does that mean? What does cascade mean? Okay. It essentially means top down. Okay. So because I defined a margin of 10 and then I defined a margin of 0, the margin of 0 will win because it's defined last. Okay. Like, for example, here, if I did div margin : 30 pixels. Okay. Now, when I did that, okay, so when I did this, I have, so essentially I have the same rule twice here, okay? I'm targeting all divs, giving it a margin of 10 pixels. Then I'm targeting things with a class of blue, giving it a margin of 0. Then I'm targeting all divs and giving it a margin of 30 pixels. Now you might be thinking, but Joe, you just told me literally like 20 seconds ago that a cascade means the last rule wins. And yes, that is true. But there are other factors. Okay. So here, if we notice this first one, it did get a margin of 30 pixels. Okay. The one that has just the big text. Now, if you notice, this one doesn't have the blue class. Okay. Hence, this rule didn't apply to it. But the ones that do have the blue class, how come they have a margin of 0 pixels instead of a margin of 30 pixels? Okay. Well, this comes into a rule of specificity. That I know is a word. Okay. And what that means is how specific your CSS selector is. Okay, now this is where things start getting a little confusing. So hopefully I will explain this well. Okay. If we go back up here, you notice that our element is a div. That is like the most generic thing, is by styling something based on its element. Okay. The next level of class that we did is a class. Okay. So classes will if you have a style that is based on a class, that is more specific than styling based on the type of element. So styling of a class blue is more specific than styling to all divs on the page. Therefore, CSS will take a class rule as overriding a generic element-based rule. Okay, hopefully that made sense. So again, because this particular blue class is a class, classes are more specific than a generic div. Hence, this margin rule will win even if a more generic rule is defined after it. But just to show you the cascade here again, if I do a dot blue margin 10 pixels, okay, we'll see now we have the cascade again, right? So here I'm defining another rule for dot blue, okay, and I'm going to give it a margin of 10 pixels. That is the most technical. I am not going to go. There are other ways of doing specificity. You know, I don't want to confuse you any further. I want to start there. I'm going to end right there. Okay. So again, there are two things to take into account: the specificity of the selector. And again, selectors, if you've seen me give any sort of hints for CSS rules, they can get more complex than this, obviously. Okay. But I don't want to go into that. I just want you to know that these two basic ways of styling something. You can style all of something on a page, and you can style it by a class. Okay. Now let's dive into RapidWeaver. Let me see if there's any other questions. What is the benefit of knowing the specifics? Most of these things I know, but I'd rather give things to Foundation 6. Okay, I'm just explaining this to kind of give you guys, so you guys know what Foundation 6 is doing. Okay, so I wanted to do this in simple HTML code, and I wanted to then, I will now translate this exact page into Foundation 6. Sweet. Okay. Let's, I'm going to create a brand spanking new file here. And I think it's a little large. Let's go ahead and size that down a bit. We'll make it the same size as this window here. Boop. Okay. We're going to add our stacks page. Okay. I don't need that inspector. Wait for stacks to load. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's add in site styles. Okay, and let's open up the settings. Now we had 3 divs on the page. Okay, I'm going to replicate exactly what I did in the HTML on this page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my container. I wanted it below. What the heck? Interesting. Okay. What? That is really weird. That might be a bug in the stacks beta. Okay. Put the side styles at the top. Okay. I have a container. And as you may or may not know, a container is a div. It's the most generic thing you can have on the page. Now, there are different things. Like if I wanted it to be exactly like what I hand coded, I'd set the sizing to be auto wrapper. Okay. For now, I'm just going to keep it as the default of site width and gutter. That just adds a little bit of default styling to the container, which kind of centers it and gives it a maximum width and whatnot. Okay. I guess maybe for fun, it could be interesting just doing it exactly like. Okay. So now I have three containers that have a sizing of no wrapper, and that is essentially a vanilla div, which is exactly what we did here. Okay. Now let's add some text into here. And I could add the text stack here, but I'm gonna try to mimic this exact code as much as possible. It could be a little bit fun. So actually, what I do is I'm gonna add an HTML stack in here, and I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna say this is my div 1. Boop. And I'm gonna copy that down. If you guys didn't know, by the way, here, let me just redo that again. Okay. If you have a stack and you're like, I want to copy this, if you hold down the Option key and then drag it, it will make a copy. And drag it again, makes another copy. Okay, in case you didn't know that. Vanilla div is your favorite flavor of ice cream. Nice. Okay. Next we have div number 2. Here we have div number 3. All right. So let's just preview this really quick. I don't use the simulate very often. Let's give it a shot here. Hello, simulate. Refresh. Weird. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Cool. So here. Let me see if I can. If I move this over, can we see them both at the same time? Yeah. Cool. Here, just for fun, I'm gonna move that over there too. Okay. Nice. Cool. So here we'll have our little preview, and here we're gonna have our text. Okay. Actually, just for fun, I'm gonna click View Code, and if you notice here, there's a couple of extra classes that I add, but this is pretty much exactly like here. Let's look at it in Safari a little bit. Inspect. We look here. There are a few extra classes that I've added in the stack, but essentially this is about as close as you can get, right? I have a div with some text, and that's it, right? Again, we have a couple classes in here that do things such as overflow and other important things for Foundation, but that is pretty bare bones. Okay, just so you can kind of see that. So now, let's see what we're going to do next. Okay, so let's start doing some swatches. Okay, so we want to do the blue background, right? So I'm going to create a swatch, and we're going to add a background swatch. And I want to do my class of blue. Okay, and we can go ahead and pick a color, and let's just pick this navy blue. Cool. So I'm gonna have I have a background of blue, and it's a dark navy blue. It might look black to you guys here. I'll do maybe slightly lighter, so it looks blue to you guys a little bit more. So here I have. Okay, I'm not gonna need those anymore. Okay, so here I have a background swatch. It has a class of blue. Again, I just set the class to be blue, and then I defined my color. Now with this swatch, obviously there's a lot of other settings you could do. You could do background images. You could do all kinds of stuff. Okay, we're just keeping it simple here, and we're using a background color of blue. So how do I style my, again, in our example, we had the number 2 and number 3 were set to have a blue background. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to type in blue here. And then I'm going to type in blue here. And voila, if we look at our preview over here, the second and third one have a background of blue. Nice. I guess one thing was the default margins. Okay. I'll show you guys how to do that. Sure, why not? All right, let's do a margin. Okay. Again, this was our first rule on the page, so we'll keep it up. Whoops. Keep it over there. Okay. Now this one didn't have a class, right? This we were styling a generic thing. Okay. Now this you're not going to do this very often. I'll be honest with you. Okay. Especially styling divs. Like you probably never want to do that. Okay. But I'll show you how to do it if you wanted. So I'm going to go to CSS selector. Okay. As you see, this is a more elaborate CSS selector. We're going to delete that and we're going to type in div. And that's it. Okay. And we wanted a margin of let's just do 12 pixels. Okay. So right now, all divs have a margin of 12 pixels. Okay. Actually, you see by doing that, it actually makes edit mode like all kinds of funky. It adds all kinds of margins on everything because swatches are applied in edit mode, right? So there you go. Again, this is definitely not something you're going to want to do. So yeah. Actually, you know what? Right now, I don't want to confuse you guys by that. So I'm going to actually delete this. I just wanted to show you how you could do that. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to delete this. But you can style all of one thing just by going to the CSS selector, typing in, the element type that you wanted. In this case, I wanted a div, so I typed div. Okay. There we go. I'm going to delete that swatch. There we go. Everything's a little nicer now. But we also, let's see, we wanted white text. Okay, so we're going to go ahead here. We're going to do the font color swatch. I know there's text colors versus font colors. I'm not going to go into that right now. There's a video on exactly that. Go watch it on the YouTube channel. Okay. In this case, though, I happen to know I'm going to do the font color swatch. I'm going to do blue. And when I add the blue class, I want a color of white. Okay. And there we go. We'll see that when I added the blue class in my preview here, I have white text. Where the one that doesn't have the blue class has the default white background. It's actually a transparent background because the background of the site is white. And the text is the default color, which is black. Okay. What I will do is, let's see. We added padding as well. So I'm going to go ahead and padding swatch. Okay. So when we have blue, so we want to apply this style to the blue class. Okay. It's important here. If you notice, I'm just creating swatches, and you can just keep stacking swatches on top of each other, applying those styles to the same class. Okay. Let's do a padding of 12. Okay. And there we go. We already see it in the swatch, or I'm sorry, in the simulator. Added a 12 pixel padding to number 2 and to number 3. Let's go ahead and add a margin too. Why not? Okay. I'm going to add, I'm diverting a little bit from that example, but it's okay. No, I won't divert. What else did we do in, so I added margin 0, padding 10, color white. Okay. Well, the margin 0 is already being applied. I guess what I will do is to kind of simulate this a little bit better. On Rapid Weaver. There we go. Anyways, I'm going to create a margin swatch. Okay. This I'm actually going to give it a class of div, just for fun, just because I don't want it being applied to everything in edit mode. We'll simulate that. Okay. Let's go to simple. We'll do margin of 12 pixels. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to this container. This container. I'm going to give it a class of div. Okay. In here just for fun, so that we have it all. We have a class of div. In here we have a class of div. Okay. Now, if you notice, all of them have it. And that's because, so I'm going to copy paste that. And I'm going to give this one a class of blue. Okay. And we're going to give it 0 margin. There we go. Okay. And we'll keep the order the same. So before oh no! No! Rapid Weaver. You did me wrong. I'll have to report that crash to Isaiah. Oh no. Did it crash? Yeah. It did. Fun times. Okay, I'm going to speed recreate what I was doing. Rats. Okay, speed create here. Okay, I had site styles. Boom. I had a container. Okay. Container. This beta of Stacks that I'm using was just released this morning, so bad me for using the beta version during a live stream, but it's okay. Boom. This is my div 1. Okay. And here I had sizing was auto, class was div. And we're going to take this, paste, 2, 3, boom, boom. Apply the blue class to both of those at the same time by multi-selecting them. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this project instead of having it untitled, and we'll call this stream. If you guys really want this, I'll give it to you afterwards. Okay, now let's go ahead and create all of our swatches. So here I had a margin swatch, and I have a class of div, has a margin of 12 pixels. I'm going to copy paste that, has a class of blue, margin of 0. We had a background swatch, had a class of blue, color, dark blue, boom. We had a font color swatch, blue, color, white, bam. Add another one, padding, blue, padding, 12. Save. Boom. Okay, we're back to where we were. Okay. There we go. I'm pretty sure that's where we were at, right? So we have, okay, crash report came. Thank you very much. So we had a margin of 12 pixels. As you see, it's applied to this one. Okay. And then when we have multiple styles for our blue. We have margin 0, background blue, color is white, font color is white, and padding is 12 pixels. Okay. As we look at Nova, big text. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do our big text swatch. That's actually in font. We do font style. Okay, and we have it set to a class. We have big dash text. Oops. Big dash text. Okay, and font size was 32. We'll just keep it 32 for everything, I guess. Not 342, 32. There we go. All right, so text size is 32 pixels on anything that I add big text to. Okay. So we had big text assigned to this container in our previous example, in our hand-coded example, and we also had it here. Boom. And there we go. I've now replicated this exact setup. Okay. I didn't redo this. Here, I'll add this one back in too. All right, let's go ahead and add that back in. So we had another div. Okay. Margin. it was actually applied after all of the blue, okay? And we set it to 32. Okay. So this now exactly replicates this, where I even overrided my default div rule before, okay? Now, a little bit different, because I'm using a class as well, it kind of works a little bit differently. So I'm going to remove that. I think that, this kind of shows us what we want, right? Now, in terms of organization, if you guys attended the Weaverspace conference this weekend, you saw some really great tips and tricks on organizing swatches. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in a pen stack, okay? And I'm just going to take all of these blue classes and I'm going to chuck them in here, okay? And I'm going to say blue boxes for the live stream. Boop. There we go. So now I've kind of encapsulated all my styles for the blue boxes, okay, inside this one pen stack, okay, which is kind of nice. And then if you really don't want to see them, you can collapse the pen as well, and you don't see them at all, even though they're there. Okay, cool. So we see that we have blue for the margin, background, padding, and font color. Okay, and then we have our font style swatch up here for big text, and then we have that default div swatch. And if we preview this in RapidWeaver, okay, again, this really isn't rocket science. It does exactly what I hand coded. Okay, so if we look at this, here, let's make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Okay, here's our three divs. Okay, here's the classes. Now again, Foundation adds a couple other things for itself under the hood, right? So overflow, hidden, container. I added that div one just because I didn't want to have that default div margin, even though swatch, even though that wouldn't affect preview at all. It just made edit mode a little weird. And that's not necessarily a type of style that you would actually use in real life. Okay. But these other ones are, right? So here we have, this first one has the class of big text. And that you'll see that the font size is, if we go, we can even see inside the styles inspector that big text here. Okay. You see this right here. Okay. And it's, Foundation does some fancy stuff, right? It doesn't do font size 32 pixels. It kind of does some calculations so that it looks good and a little bit more responsive on mobile and stuff. Okay. But again, that's my Foundation stack's doing some fancy stuff for you on behalf of you under the hood. Okay. But the premise here is the same. We have a big text class and we're assigning it the font size. Okay. Next up down here is we have this second one, which has the blue background. And if we notice here, we have all of our blue styles. Okay, so we have our color is set to white. We have our padding set to, again, in the swatch, we set it to 12 pixels. But again, Foundation does some fancy math behind the hood and actually assigns it a responsive unit instead. So again, I'm doing a lot of that legwork for you. Okay, blue, we're setting a bunch of background settings and the margin is set to 0, right? And we'll even see that this blue margin is overriding that default one of 12 pixels of margin, right? So we can kind of see the cascade of styles inside this dev inspector, because while this margin of 12 pixels is applied, the blue margin wins. Okay, we can see because this one's crossed out. Actually, if you go to the computed tab inside the dev inspector, and if we look at margin, let's go ahead and look at margin. Okay, we'll actually see all the various rules and the order in which the browser applied them, right? So it took 0 pixels from the body, a 0 pixel default from the theme, and then it took our div from 12 pixels, which is 0.75 rem, and then it overrode that by our blue class. That's kind of cool, right? We can actually see all this stuff happening. Okay, and then obviously our last one has both the blue and the big text classes. And we can see all of those get applied here inside this style inspector as well. So here, there's a bunch of questions here. Now that you have 3 swatches for blue, wouldn't it make more sense to have one swatch blue with several settings like padding, backgrounds? Yes, that would be nice, but that's just not possible with the UI. Okay, because again, I don't want to have a stack that has every possible setting that you could create: backgrounds, margins, paddings, font colors, because then we're back to where we used to be back in the day, right? So what I've done here is I've broken all the possible styles that you want, and then you can apply that to the swatch or the class. Hopefully that makes sense, Gaston. Okay. Yes, and as LJ says, again, the reason we don't have one thing that's set to blue and then all the styles is just because how the UI is built. We only want to add what we need. I don't want to have a ton of settings on the page that aren't being used. So that's why this approach is the best. It makes the smallest and most efficient output for our code. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's why with inside swatches, yes, you could potentially need multiple swatches. Whereas if I were to hand type this CSS, it is one succinct rule. Okay. But again, that's just a manual versus having a tool to do it for you, right? So, that's just how tools are. Okay. If we all hand coded our websites, we can have the most optimal version, but we don't want to do that. I don't even want to do that. That's why we use stacks and swatches, and I try to make things as optimal as possible. Now, I would ultimately love to eventually be able to give you some sort of output like this. But really, who cares about the output? I mean, the output of these swatches is so minimal. I mean, it's like we're talking like bytes of code difference, right? I mean, and Foundation also does a lot of extra stuff for you. As you saw in the margins, instead of defining things in pixels, I actually do some math in the background and calculate things for you so that it's more responsive, right? So the stacks have a lot of other benefits as well. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay. That was pretty much what I wanted to go over today. Hopefully this made sense. I tried to keep it as simple as possible. A couple things. I just wanted you to realize that classes are simple. And like all this is doing, okay, when I type in the blue class in here, and when we pick settings, all it's doing is essentially what we did here. We have blue, so it's putting in the dot blue. It's putting, and then, when I type in the blue class in the container stack, all it's doing is injecting it here. Okay. And yes, when I'm doing a swatch, here I will quickly output what code is being done here. Essentially, when we build the swatch, okay, for the blue class here, we have 4 swatches. Essentially, what that is doing is this. Okay. So yeah, it's again, less than a byte of extra code, right? Right, very little bit. And when your web servers compress this down, I mean, this is going to be extremely efficient. But then also the stacks don't do things like 10 pixels, right? It's going to do 0.16 rem or something like that, because it does a lot of that math for us in the background. So the swatches do a bunch of other stuff, and then they also do some. As background, it applied some other background settings that kind of make it a nice default and make sure that things work properly how we would expect it to. So there's a lot of benefits to swatches as well. But yeah, so this is essentially what a swatch would do, but the end result is exactly the same. And that's really the important part, right? We want to build websites without having to know code, okay? but funny enough, but this is me telling you how it works with code, because I think it's important to know how things work under the hood. Will you not build a stack to include adverts on a page? Do not want the Google way. I'm not sure what you mean about building a stack for advertisements. Okay. How do you choose between swatches and utility classes? LJ, that is a great question. And I have a video on that. It's about a 5-minute video. The rundown is it's just a personal choice. Okay. Utility classes are probably classes that you would use for a lot of things. So it's really just up to you on what you like and what makes your workflow better, right? I mean, for example, in here I have margin of 0. I don't necessarily need that, right? I could do m:0, right? Okay. And then on this one, let's say I delete this margin swatch. I'm going to delete that right now. Okay. So essentially, if I wanted to use a utility class, m:0, okay. There it goes. Okay. So, yes, I could have the blue swatch color and then use the utility class for margin 0. Okay. But then I have to remember that whenever I want to have something blue, if I always want to have blue things to have a margin of 0, why require that I add the blue class and the margin 0 class, right? When all I'd have to do is add a swatch into the blue, make it margin 0. Then I only need to add the blue class to things, right? So while utility classes are great, here's a perfect example of why it wouldn't make sense. Now, if every time I didn't necessarily want the blue class to always have a margin of 0, then maybe, let's say I wanted the top one to have a margin of 0, but the bottom one not, right? Then using utility classes would potentially make sense. But in this case, if I always wanted the blue thing to have a margin 0, I mean, it just makes it simpler to I add a swatch, and then whenever I add the blue class, it already does what I want it to do, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But if you want more explanation, I go more in depth into some more various pros and cons in a video on my YouTube channel. Cool. Well, guys, I think that's a wrap. I hit just under an hour, so hopefully I didn't break your brains. Hopefully light bulbs did come off today. I tried to keep things simple, but hopefully it helped out. Does the utility class adjust also this to screen size? Yes, you can. There are utility classes that let you target large, medium, and small. Some companies request advertise on their websites. Was wondering if there was a stack. I don't think there is a stack for advertisements, other than maybe you can use, I know some people use Total CMS like blog for advertisements, and they just, just normal image. And if someone pays for an advert, they drag the image into there and it displays on the website. And if they don't pay for it, they remove the image from the website, something like that. So that's an idea, Willie. Else you could just create it with stacks. Nothing necessarily special. Cool. Hopefully that helps everybody. I hopefully will see you guys on Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. On Friday at the Hangout this Friday. And yeah, thank you very much. I know a lot of the people that attended the conference are here, and there's many speakers that spoke at the conference are here as well. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I really appreciate you. Just another way of me saying thank you very much publicly for making that event so special. The recordings for that will be available. I'm having my son do all the editing. Hopefully by the end of this weekend, we'll have them all done, and we'll have them uploaded for you guys to watch if you missed any of those talks. So cool. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. And I guess I should have just went here. And I will see you guys next week or on Friday at the Hangout. Take care, everyone. Bye.